They need to take a hard look at personal responsibility, because like that's what it's all about. Politics is team sports, and what it has turned into, and the bickering and the back and forth. It really is irrelevant to most of us when it comes to like how we operate our home, how it affects us on a daily basis. Obviously, this is a little bit different because the last 4 years have come into our house and affected us. I mean, you can't deny the fact that groceries are twice as expensive as they were. Gas is more expensive. Everything's more expensive than it was.
How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in place? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
Welcome to another episode of the Tactical Empire. I am joined by Shawn Rider today. How's it going, man? How are you?
Jeff, I'm good. How are you doing?
Fantastic, man. Fantastic.
Well, man, here we go. You did not ask me what the topics of the day were before we hit record, so I'm just going to go straight for the jugular. It is July 15th, 2024 when we're recording this, so it might be a week and a half until it hits the universe. So we are a little delayed in posting our thoughts here, but these are our thoughts nonetheless. But 2 days ago, there was an assassination attempt on former President Trump and current Republican nominee Trump. Wild.
Yeah.
Wild thoughts, Jeff Smith.
Oh, man. You want my thoughts?
I do. I want your thoughts out on the record.
Yeah, man. I mean, my thoughts Saturday were different than they are today, Monday, a little bit. Not tremendously different. We were at a Blackberry festival, and when I saw the news on the TV, I was passing by at a bar, and I was pretty surprised, obviously, but not totally surprised. I think that the details of it came out pretty quickly, that it was like a series of errors. Didn't really lead to the thing, but like the thing reeks like there was some serious, I don't know what I'd be willing to leap to, cooperation from some people in the know, because like there's no way that thing happens the way it does. I mean, the guy was on a building 130 yards away from a president, and anybody that's ran security for mall cops would have identified that you should probably clear the roofs, and that would have been a point of interest. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing reeks that it couldn't have been what it's being told to be. I mean, the government has a long history of coercing people into being fall guys for stupid shit like this. That was my initial thought, that like this was going to turn out to be some fucking turd that they coaxed into doing something under the guise of whatever. They catfish people all the time in scenarios like this. I mean, I know people don't believe that goes on, but like this, legitimately that's going on all the time. And you can just crawl people's Google searches to determine like who is potentially mentally ill, who is looking up certain search terms. And the government has access to all that shit. They're spying on us all the time, right? And so if they simply go out there and say, oh, what vulnerable 20-year-old guys do we have in this category? And boom, I'm going to be a 18-year-old girl that's like, hey, you should do this. And whoever's on the back end of that keyboard is whoever. And I mean, there's proven situations time after time that has actually occurred. So I don't know why this would be any different, but except for negligence on the local police force, the Secret Service, and the security teams that were assigned to it, because none of that should have happened. As far as like, I mean, there's videos now that we're 2 days later now, 3 days later, and like I said, they had identified him and watched him crawl across the roof for minutes without shooting him. So there's a lot of unanswered questions at this point in time. I'm not going to go all the way off the deep end and speculate on exactly who or how, but there was a lot of mistakes made, and it seems to be at this point that somebody was complicit on the ground there in letting that happen, because there should have been people on that roof. There were drones in the air as well. And so, like, I mean, if you look at the layout of the facility where they were at from an aerial perspective, it's pretty simple to see where your points of vulnerability would be. And so I don't know. I can speculate all I want, but
I mean, I definitely, for those of you that don't know Jeff's background, I mean, he's been a place or two and have cleared a room or two and was around dangerous folks a time or two. So I certainly respect his opinion. But our goal of this podcast is to add value to the listeners' lives on what they can do about certain situations. So kind of let's just piece a few things together here on what this may mean for your life now. And like one of the simplest things that I recognize, and I've been vocal on other podcasts that I don't really dive down conspiracy theory type topics, and I try and avoid it and just focus on what's in my control. And I've tried to open myself up to some of these grander ideas and visions without studying the history of the government. And I know my opinion has changed over the past 4 years to feel like there are forces at play. But the first question or observation I had out the actual situation that occurred at hand was, and I said this to my wife this morning and someone else when I was playing pickleball, it was like President Trump gets on a debate stage and the only thing I see on social media for the next 24 hours are at least 150 posts, positive or negative, because I'm friends with people on both sides. I'll just see nonstop posts about him after a debate performance. And we just had one, 2-3 weeks ago, and I saw nothing but social media posts about it. Then this dude gets shot in the head. I saw, I'm going to say less than 15, but the real number was probably 6 posts. And they were from the same 3 people that posted twice. You cannot tell me that the people I'm friends with and follow on social media did not post about one of the greatest historical events of our time. A former president running for re-election got shot in the head and there was nothing. So what is the value here of the people listening is like, do you believe everything you see on social media? Like, did you recognize that on your stuff? Like, I know you follow a ton of people that are in the know on some of these things. Like, what did your social media look like for the past 48 hours? I've seen nothing about it.
I think it was really busy at first, and then I think people backed off a little bit because I think they were waiting for things to settle and figure out what was going on, more so than anything else. I also think that at first people were just confused, and so it was very interesting and very attractive and like dopamine hits of excitement of like what is going on, because I mean these are historical times. We haven't had a president shot at since Reagan and 1984, I believe, and we haven't had anything like this. So you're talking, 40 years, 50 years? So, I mean, these are historical times. We don't do stuff like this in the United States. We don't assassinate presidents to sway elections and things like that. So, I mean, I think Sunday was more of a somber day with the at least for me, it was like the setting in. I mean, for me, it was immediate, because I knew sitting on that town square at the Blackberry Festival that things changed just then, right then. And there's certain tipping points in history when the country can go multiple ways from this point. But I think this is a significant moment in who we're going to become going forward. And I think so Sunday, as you mentioned, it was quieter in my opinion on social media. And I think that was more because people were going internal and trying to determine what it means for them and for their family. And like, I mean, this is time to like get right with your God, get right with your money, get right with your family, and like what's important to you. Because I think what happened Saturday more than anything is it made it very real to those people that were sitting on the fence thinking that this isn't really a historical time in our lives.
I hope you're right on that assessment, because I was going deep internally this morning and I was playing this game in my head with what I just said, like the fact that it's been quiet on social media and who's suppressing or not. Maybe just people were just kind of waiting and sitting back, but I don't know if the masses would do that. So I hope you're right on people are going internal. I hope they do recognize we're in historical times. But I started playing this mental game with myself this morning on what if what tried to happen occurred. I've seen other things that said, what if he died? There'd be civil war in the streets and all this stuff. And I'm not here to argue whether that would have not happened. But I started playing this in my head. It's like, are we so desensitized as a society in the United States, and we live in such a 24 to 48 hour news cycle? Like, what if he did get shot in the head and died? Like, what if people actually been up in arms? Like, what would Monday morning that we're recording right now, what would it look like? I'm kind of playing the opposite in my head. It's like, do people actually not recognize what the hell just happened 48 hours ago? Like, I don't know. It's a rhetorical question maybe to you, but kind of sell me on the idea that that's not what's happening. Like, because literally people aren't talking about this unless you turn on the news. They have to do their job, but like nobody's like talking, man, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, I think that there's some shock, a lot of things going on. I mean, somebody did die. They shot that guy in the head, protecting his family, and he died as a spectator. So,
Yep.
I mean, there were casualties of the situation. And I think part of what they could have been doing on social media, in my opinion, is that like there's nothing good going to come out of those conversations.
Right. You couldn't argue about what the fuck happened.
Right. I mean, there's really no argument. It was right there, plain as day. Now, like you could speculate. I mean, there's
you could speculate why it happened and who was in the hands of it, but you could not speculate that a bullet went flying. So I like that statement. Go with it.
So I mean, I think it's interesting that like I just it's funny because I think there's not much to say. Like if you hate Trump, like now's not really the time, I guess, to like go out and start piling on like, oh, he was. Plus, I don't think they would have said anything anyway because it was just a normal rally, and he's holding rallies all the time anyway. So like the significance of this was that obviously there was an attempt made on his life. Now we'll see what turns up because of that, because I hope it brings everybody together. And it could be the question I would ask when you talk about desensitization, are we so desensitized to like human life just going by the wayside that it's worthwhile to like call for that or whatever, right? Yeah. Like, oh, we just don't like this guy, so instead of voting him out or beating him at the ballot box or whatever the hell it is, it's okay to just take him out and eliminate him. I mean, are we that far along the
I hope not. I hope not. I hope not. I think that's where we need to go with this podcast. As like a few months ago, we had maybe at the beginning of 2023, we had a podcast on how to be prepared in the coming year of the election year. And prices were rising, interest rates were rising, and we were like, hey, look, get your house in order. Physically, financially, spiritually, like make sure you have food stored in your house. Make sure you have guns and ammo. Make sure you have a good standing relationship with your spouse and your kids, and what your evacuation plan is going to be. And I want to take a different approach to it today based on what you're saying in regards to like, I do hope people are realizing that this is a very humane a very human thing that happened on Saturday, regardless of your opinions on the guy. And we are in historical times. And so I really do hope this is a time to come together and not turn your back on your fellow citizen, regardless of the color that they vote for. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out over the coming weeks, especially with them. They said they were going to pause their attack ads and their commercials and their campaign trails. And then this morning, 48 hours later this morning, they're picking right back up and going to be out on the road. And we have the RNC this week and the DNC is coming up. So they have to do their campaign. I'm really interested in seeing how the tone, because at the end of the day, this is supposed to be not only the leader of the United States, but the leader of the free world. And if both of them had a phone call and said, it is time to soften the tone and bring the country together and unite. But you don't get united by telling your audience that the other person is a criminal, by telling the other person can't wipe his own ass, whatever words and phrases they've been using. So I really do hope that this is a moment to recognize that, your neighbor is your neighbor. Your neighbor could have been the one at the rally who jumped on his family to protect them and then died. And that's where my mind went. Like, I started thinking not only what would have happened if the bullet would have hit the target, so to speak, on Trump. I just listened to Ivanka Trump on a podcast. I forget, one of the popular podcasts last week when I was walking my dogs, and I went to her like, what was she thinking when she heard the news? And then you think of his son Baron, and it's like, oh my God, like, yeah, at the end of the day, these are real humans, and this is happening to them. This is affecting their life. So I do hope people come together. So Jeff, let's say this, like, instead of telling people, oh, you need to be prepared for the worst and the worst, like, how can we positively impact the listeners on what can you do moving forward from now, hopefully in perpetuity, but let's just say from now to the end of the year? How can we live a more united life in our own sphere? What are some things that you would suggest men particularly to do to be leaders in their ecosystem?
Well, I mean, I think it's about like recognition that the whole system's set up to divide us and create a bunch of differences and point out differences between us, right? And but at the end of the day, we're all not really that different. And so if you were asking me my opinion on what to do to make the world a better place, is just go out and be a good human being and be nice to your fellow man. And like part of what you're discussing is we've lost the ability to have discourse in communication and the ability to disagree and have these conversations, because that's what we've lost over the last 40 years. And like, if you wanted to, and it's because of like some of these topics being taboo, but then it's also because of social media and like other things. But like understanding that the system is set up to divide us between like haves and have nots and whatever color our skin is and all this other shit that is just ignorance. And most human beings, if they're thoughtful human beings, are above all that, I would think. If they could take 2 deep breaths and not allow their emotions to get the best of them. And like what you're describing is like these are people with husbands and wives and kids and just normal human beings. And if you have that sort of empathy for your fellow man, and you should be exercising that in your local community, in your town, in your sphere of influence. We get so caught up in like what Donald Trump's doing or whatever, like that what really matters is the impacts made on the ground within your house and within the 20 people you interact with on a regular basis. And so if we just start behaving better as better human beings to those around us, we can set an example that will provide a ripple effect that should be a positive thing. I think it's hard to not get caught up in some of this with regards to, for me, it's frustrating because like I see this stuff go on and I see other people that are so naive to it that they're like, no, that could never happen. There's not really bad people out there. And like, it's hard to have those conversations from time to time. So I need to take some of my own medicine with regards to it. But like, I often don't participate in back and forths. I educate, say my piece and move on. And if you pick it up, good for you. If you don't, I'm too busy to mess with you. Yeah. So I don't know. We've got a big hill to climb. We got a lot of things to fix. And so it's going to take everybody though.
I think that there is a dichotomy there, and it's tough, especially in today's age, because I laugh that, you say have the political discourse, and then, you have your opinions and you state them and you move on. And I think some people may not understand that statement, but I recognize what you were saying there, because we have a lot going on. Like, we're married, we have kids, we have goals, we're pushing forward. You guys are traveling the country. Like, me and my wife are trying to open businesses. Like, and so it's really hard for me. And that's kind of why I've avoided these big governmental topics and macroeconomic topics, because I'm so focused on the here and the now and the us, not at the detriment to my fellow man, but like, man, there's a lot in today's world in 2024 to handle. And so I think that's kudos to the people that put some attention on there. But at the end of the day, guys, like, I think this does come back to our message on improving your leadership capabilities, regardless of how many external people outside of your family and friends, your sphere of friends that you're influencing. If you're a boss at work or a leader at work, like whatever it is, just whoever you lead them. improve your financial acuity, your financial IQ, and just do your best, man. Like, people, go walk downtown and you'll see a lot more positive, smiling faces in your local community than what you see on the news clickbait headlines. So just stay focused, stay to the grind, be informed, but don't get tied down with the world's ending, so I can't take action, I can't make moves. I don't think we're about that life. We want you to stay focused on your goals and leading yourself, leading your family. You are the asset, and then go acquire real, tangible, hard assets. So realistically, Jeff, I mean, in a one sentence answer, does anything really change for the people that listen to this podcast after what happened this past weekend?
Well, I think they need to take a hard look at personal responsibility, because like that's what it's all about. Like these team sports, who's the president, like politics is team sports in what it has turned into, and the bickering and the back and forth. It really is irrelevant to most of us when it comes to like how we operate our home, how it affects us on a daily basis. Obviously, this is a little bit different because the last 4 years have come into our house and affected us. I mean, you can't deny the fact that groceries are twice as expensive as they were. Gas is more expensive. Everything's more expensive than it was. And so like now it's hitting people at home. But ultimately, excuse me, we need to get back to understanding our responsibility as citizens. And like you asked what we can do, like we just had a hurricane in Houston and everybody's bitching about the power not being on and all this other stuff. And like, I just laugh because Houston gets hit by hurricanes all the time. And like, you have to understand, it's the same thing. Like the government is not coming to save you. Donald Trump being president is probably not going to significantly change our lives positively or negatively. And there's an argument to be made that if we continue another 4 years of the last 4 years, that like our lives could significantly change in a negative way. And so like, but I'm not here to breach that topic. What I want you to understand is that it's all up to you anyway. And like, if people need smacked over the head with that message, like, because we've gone so far as to believe that there's a shining knight on the hill, and it's not all about that. It's back to getting our house in order, like you said. But ultimately that means like not spending more than you make, like taking care of your own shit, being a responsible adult. Like if you live on $60,000, or if you make $60,000, you don't spend $75,000. Like if you live in Houston, Texas, get a fucking generator, because there's hurricanes every year. And don't sit there and let your food all spoil and then sit on the couch bitching on social media about Centerpoint not giving you power in a day. I mean, were there mistakes made? Certainly. There could be mistakes made all the time, but you don't have to be at the mercy of someone else if you depend on yourself for taking care of yourself. And that is a liberating feeling. That is freedom. And so don't take that for granted. That's where I would be with things. That's what it makes me think about, because these politicians are in it for themselves. They don't give a fuck about you or me or my kids. And like, they're going to do what benefits them. And some of them are truly, truly evil. And like, I think they're going to do things that don't benefit you or your kids, and some doing things even worse than that. So like, all the more important to take care of you and your shit, and have all of the provisions necessary to take care of everybody you're responsible for, and hopefully some of your neighbors.
Control, ownership, and lack of abdication. Do not abdicate any of the responsibilities for you and your family. Well, I hope we took the historical event that occurred and we put it in a better light for how you guys can step away from this podcast episode and take some tactical steps on improving your life. Those of you that listened to plenty of our episodes, maybe there was nothing new in there, but it was interesting to take our principles and put them in on the spin of what happened this weekend. So Jeff, let's go ahead and send the people out.
Guys, we put every episode on YouTube. So if you're a YouTube subscriber, go out there and check out our episodes on YouTube. We've got about 350 videos out there. So give us a subscribe and a like or some feedback. Join the Facebook group. We've got a free Facebook group where we talk about and teach all of our principles, whatever. If If you have questions, go in there, hit us up. You can always contact Shawn and I directly. Our Instagram handles are on the screen as well. So have a great week. Kick ass. Keep moving forward. The president is not going to make or break your life, most likely. So keep moving forward and kicking ass.